Hi, everybody. This is Andrew Shikiar at FIDO Alliance. I'd like to welcome you to the third day of our Authenticate Virtual Summit on APAC Innovation. For those of you who've already watched the past 2 days of the summit, welcome back. For the rest of you, welcome today and welcome in general. I'm going to kick things off today by giving an update on where FIDO stands in the broader identity authentication landscape with some local context as well for the rest of today's conversations. First of all, I think it's important to back up a little bit. Here we are almost 2 years into this pandemic. And so much change has been driven by the pandemic that we've all had to deal with. Whether that means working remotely, that means not traveling, it means caring for loved ones at home rather than just focusing on your day job. But one impact that has been certainly impacted all of us at FIDO Alliance has been the lack of the ability to meet in person. FIDO has a history of running several seminars in Asia Pacific this time of year, which is something I personally have always enjoyed and missed very much. These are images here from our last Tokyo seminar, which in particular I've always found to be an inspiring event. I've spoken there for, I think, the past 5 years or so before the pandemic hit, where we see hundreds of people in person engaging in the audience, talking to the speakers, talking to the sponsors. There's always so much innovation and discussion happening at that seminar, as well as at related seminars that we've had in Seoul and Beijing and Taipei. I'm hoping that the past 2 days and today have helped replicate that. I understand it's not quite the same, and we hope to resume these events in 2022 and 2023, including in-person seminars in Tokyo and Seoul and Taipei. So, speaking of COVID, I think it's fair to say that COVID made a bad authentication situation even worse. All right, many of us know the risks associated with passwords, and so do hackers. And COVID gave hackers a great opportunity to bring even more damage into the marketplace. As you can see from some of the data here, hackers took advantage of the fact that all of a sudden there was a much broader attack surface in which they could work. There were remote workers who were working remotely for the first time. That 20% of banking customers who only did banking in branch and all of a sudden were now digital, doing digital services, they were rife for phishing attacks and other spoofs to try to steal their credentials and steal their accounts and steal their money. And so it's little wonder that we've seen data such as these, such as a threefold increase in the number of times that financial services were attacked during COVID. 18 million COVID-themed malware and phishing emails blocked by Google each day. So we've all, felt the brunt of COVID, but authentication was also a hot area, both for hackers and for the industry to combat them as well. Ultimately, what we've seen from this, and we've seen in general, is that we need to fundamentally shift the way we're authenticating users, moving away from knowledge-based credentialing to possession-based. So from things that that are in your head to things that you actually have in your hand or on your body. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is stop the ability for hackers to launch wide-scale remote attacks that can steal tens or hundreds of millions of identities at once, to forms of authentication that are entirely phishing resistant and immune from remote attacks. Ultimately, we need to stop being dependent on human readable shared secrets as a means of authentication, both through primary and secondary authentication, and stop sending that data over the wire. We need to move away not just from passwords as a means of authentication, but also from other forms of legacy multi-factor authentication, such as OTPs and other forms of MFA that rely on server-based credentialing. And this reflects FIDO's goal from day one, which has been to transform the market away from dependence on centrally stored shared secrets to a model that uses public key cryptography and allows consumers to authenticate through devices that they literally have at their fingertips every day. It's simpler, stronger authentication. As you can see in this simplified matrix here, we're looking for an approach that is both easier and more secure than passwords, but also OTPs and other forms of MFA. And all this work has been driven by our board of directors and our membership at large, right? We have over 250 companies worldwide. This is our board of directors. I think what's cool about this set of logos is that it shows that we have the full set of companies helping kind of deliver the strategic guidance for FIDO that we want to have sitting around the table, giving such guidance. We have companies that create the platforms and devices that we use every single day. We have companies that are experts in security and biometrics. And last but not least, we have the service providers, the banks, the social media companies, and so on, whose businesses are entirely dependent upon their ability to deliver high assurance services to billions of users worldwide on a daily basis. So they bring in the requirements into FIDO Alliance, and they work collectively with the rest of the Alliance to build the specifications that are at the core of FIDO's mission and the core of FIDO's outputs. So in addition to this board of directors, we have sponsor members who comprise the FIDO Alliance working groups. We have associate members who help build out the FIDO certified ecosystem. And we also have liaison partners who are other .orgs that help us address adjacent use cases and adjacent and region-specific requirements as well through technical development and education programs. And all of these members have built something very real and very disruptive, authentication standards that are now being built into devices at massive scale. If you look at this, this data here, over 4 billion devices support built-in cryptographic FIDO strong authentication. It's this sort of scale that we need for the market to move past passwords and shared secrets. When I first got involved with FIDO several years ago, the most common question I would hear from a service provider is, well, yeah, this sounds great, but who can use it? How do I know my users can actually leverage FIDO without having to make them jump through hoops and add unnecessary friction? Well, this has largely addressed that question, as virtually every device that's being unboxed this very moment can now support FIDO out of the box. Right, so FIDO is supported in every major operating system, every major browser, which gives us a scale we need to really make a dent and to fully address the password issue that's been vexing us for so long. And it's a little wonder then that we've seen so many companies deploy FIDO. This is a subset of the type of companies that have deployed FIDO, but should give you a good feel for the breadth and depth of use cases, geographies, and organizations that are deploying FIDO authentication today. And we've seen this also at scale in Asia. This is an eye chart, but we've seen strong adoption across the region. Some of our earliest adopters have been in Asia, including in Japan, who you'll hear from today. And we'll continue to see more and more innovation throughout Asia Pacific as we move forward. We're also seeing our core platform stakeholders back this up, not just by contributing to FIDO, but by deploying FIDO authentication. Right, so Google has a Google Advanced Protection Program that is a form of MFA that prevents unphishable authentication for Gmail and other G Suite services. FIDO security keys are the only form of MFA that can be utilized in Google APP program. To support this, Google is actually giving keys away to high-risk users to help encourage them to use this technology. Apple is another key participant in FIDO Alliance. Earlier this year, they announced the intent of something called passkeys. Passkeys basically replace complex passwords on the iCloud keychain with unique FIDO key pairs, taking the password not just out of the hands of consumers, but also off the servers as well. So this is a very critical initiative that we look forward to seeing the Alliance build upon as we move forward into 2022. And last but not least, Microsoft recently announced that Microsoft account users have the option of getting rid of passwords in favor of FIDO security keys, biometrics, and other forms of passwordless authentication. So it's great to see these key stakeholders not just building inside of FIDO, but leveraging the technology as well. So I want to give a sneak peek on a couple of things we have coming up next in FIDO Alliance. First of all, we're focused on empowering industry professionals. We announced this program last month, the FIDO Certified Professional Program. This is a program we're putting into place to help enable more and more identity and security and authentication professionals who need to understand how to use FIDO better, and also to allow them to demonstrate the fact that they know how to deploy FIDO at scale. We think this will bring benefit to enterprises and employees alike. This program will be kicking off in earnest in Q1 of 2022. Please stay tuned to FIDO to learn how you can take part in this program. Additionally, we continue to work on adjacent work areas that we need to fill the gaps in the broader identity landscape adjacent to FIDO's core mission of driving unphishable user authentication. The two spaces in particular, we have active working groups focused on: first, identity verification and binding, where we're aiming to introduce an approach to identity verification and account onboarding that is possession-based in nature. So, seeks to leverage use of users' biometric and possession of a government document, to allow for safer onboarding, which also allows for more secure and easier account recovery, closing the social engineering backdoor that so many hackers can leverage today. So that work continues to progress within our identity verification and binding working group. We'll have more to share with you in that in early 2022 as well. The second key work area is an IoT. Simply put, we need to take the password out of IoT. We introduced the FIDO device onboard protocols earlier in 2021. The specs are available. Open source code is available, and we have certification programs for FIDO coming soon in 2022. Later today, you'll hear from Richard Kerslake with more details on FIDO. So, in summary, FIDO is very much the future of the current and the future of user and device authentication. FIDO is very unique in the marketplace and in the history of standards, really, in the sense that we have such a broad mix of companies taking part. Many are fierce competitors, and they all work very collaboratively on FIDO's core technical and market enablement outputs. And so we look forward to ongoing innovation in the alliance, both with authentication, for user authentication, device authentication, identity, and a host of market enablement programs and education programs, such as this Authenticate Virtual Summit series. Before I wrap up, I want to give you some highlights for today. So we have three blocks of content today. Later in this morning block, you'll hear important perspectives from Google on their passwordless vision, as well as from our policy advisor, Jeremy Grant, on regulatory trends and their impacts on authentication. You'll also get a great overview from Intel on FIDO device onboard, which is, again, FIDO's work in IoT. The afternoon block will shift to Japan, which will feature a guest keynote from the Japan Digital Agency, which will actually be preceded by a view on market trends in Japan from our FIDO Japan Working Group Chairman, Koichi Moriyama. The Japan section will also feature various case studies and perspectives from Excel, Rakuten, and Yahoo Japan, followed by a live Q&A session. Our final block for the summit, our final block today, will feature Taiwanese perspectives. Taiwan has actually been the center of a lot of FIDO activity over the past couple of years. And in fact, we've launched a regional engagement forum as chaired by Karen Cheng of Aegis. You'll hear from Karen today, as well as from other key Taiwanese stakeholders. And that will wrap up our 3 days of the Virtual Authenticate Summit focused on APAC authentication.